and I hit record before I start. Anyway, we're just going to go with it. That's going to be the intro right there. No.
Okay.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jay Helms. I'm the founder of this podcast and movement known as the W2 Capitalist. Today, I am super excited, and now that I've read through her bio, intimidated by today's guest, Dr. Miranda Phillips. Miranda is the co-founder of Elite Wealth and Wellness. She is an entrepreneur, investor, philanthropist, and international speaker, and a physician. Dr. Phillips started practicing medicine in 2009 after graduating med school with a 4.0 GPA. So right there's two things that you and I differ on. Number one, I've never been to grad school. Number two, I've never had a 4.0 GPA. That over there that represents like a 2.5. Right. And I'm proud to put it on my wall. So
that's awesome. You should be proud. You know, Kiyosaki has words around A students and C students, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. But with Miranda's having a thorough understanding of the codependent relationships between mental and physical health, which I want to dive in today, she has pushed herself hard to find both her intellectual and physical limits, from setting NCAA intercollegiate women's soccer records that still stand today and becoming financially free and independent by her mid-30s to spending time thousands of feet above and below sea level all across the world, which I don't know. I just had an anxiety attack thinking about diving. Her adventures and achievements have taught her many beneficial lessons in life, in addition to granting her a unique perspective of humanity and the world. Miranda, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jay. It's a great privilege to be on your show.
So you and I connected through Facebook, and I know one of the things and the reason why I wanted to talk with you is because this connection that you have with wealth and wellness, right? Because a lot of times people tend to sacrifice one or the other, right? When it just comes to life, right? Is that
Absolutely.
and even, so I'll lay some groundwork here. Even in the mastermind, we just finished up a course. It was a 3-week course where we focused on goal setting. And so that, tomorrow, so we're recording this on June 30th, and tomorrow starts Q3. The course was designed to kick off Q3 for these guys to have a 12-week, really focused, laser focused vision or goals. And, on Saturday, one of the guys says, "Hey, can I replace one of my real estate investing goals with like being a better husband?" I was like, "Absolutely you can." So there's all sorts of stuff, that goes into being wealthy, and health is one of those things. So let's dive into how those two are interconnected.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you've pointed out, Jay, what's super important is to know where you're going in life and know what your dream life, so to speak, looks like and where you want to be. Otherwise, it's extremely difficult to pave the way to get there. But once you know where you're going, and that's kind of your lighthouse, then persistence, with your action will get you there. So as you've set up with your mastermind, you've done it perfectly and laid that out. The next step, as you've probably also elucidated to them, is time blocking. So you know kind of where your dream life is, and you've got to lay out your priorities explicitly. At least that's the way I did it and has been successful in my coaching. And whenever you lay out explicit goals about what your priorities are and what you want your life to be without regrets. And so you need to know what you need on the calendar in order to live that life, and then ultimately pass on, as we all do, without regret. So laying out those priorities, and of course health has to be one of them, right? Because what's wealth if you're going to die tomorrow and not be able to benefit from any of it, right?
Yep.
So that's got to be a part of it. But as you lay out the priorities in life, it helps to have a little bit of kind of medical background, if you will, in being able to help people understand that one of the requirements is social connection, meaningful relationships. We find that as a spouse or significant other, or as a parent, as a child, to our own parents, however that is. And that's super important. You have to have that. That's just one of the required variables, if you will, for happiness mentally. So knowing you have to have that, knowing that you've got to have physical health, and then having some insight about, okay, what is physical health comprised of? Well, the 3 main elements are sleep, diet, and exercise. And just kind of piecing those all together, and then time blocking. So putting that on your calendar, say, okay, what are my priorities? And you have to know your priorities, right? Otherwise, it makes it more difficult to decide what goes on your calendar. So is it Do you have physical health that you need to address before anything else? Like if you want to be able to be a spouse and be a parent, to be a child, and be able to influence those people, do you have your health to do that? Or, does that need to be part of your focus? And it shouldn't be to the exclusion of those relationships, but maybe that takes a little bit more time in your calendar when you sit down to time block and say, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to be exercising and doing some cardiovascular stuff. And then, from this time to this time later on the day, maybe that's my kid time or my, parent time or my significant other time. But time blocking is huge. And then just knowing that you've got to have your health if you're going to have a happy life. And then you know how to time block for that.
Yeah, and I love that. And we didn't do a whole lot of show prep, and you were messaging me before. It's like, are there any questions I need to prepare for or whatnot? And I'm
Right,
like,
right.
no, I just kind of go by the seat of my pants. So I love that you mentioned time blocking. It is something that we definitely talk about in the W2 Capitalist Mastermind. Matter of fact, I had a call Monday morning with one of the members. She's been in there for almost since the inception, and she still struggles, and I struggle with it too, right? And it's one of these things where big fan of the 12-week year by Brian Moran, and if it's not on that bookshelf behind you, you need to check it out. I think it's just amazing to really get laser focused on where you're going to spend your time for the next year, or not next year, for the next 12 weeks. And I go through this every quarter, right? I go through this process. All right, what am I going to focus on? And I hate this week because here we are leading up, the new quarter starts tomorrow. And I hate it because I know I'm going to push myself to say, okay, my schedule is going to change up, but I need to time block, because if I don't time block, it's going to get consumed. Right. And the conversation on Monday, I was like, the lady she was concerned about having the right time blocks in place. I was like, number one, you can't be perfect. Don't worry about being perfect on it. Number two, time blocking is just like a budget, right? You have a financial budget, you should have a time budget. That way, when you're spending when you're spending time doing something like being on Facebook or trying to grow your business or spending time with your kids, that you shouldn't feel guilty about doing that, because you've already allotted that time. It's almost like a mental game, right? So I love that you brought up
Exactly.
time blocking. It is a huge, huge. What's the phrase I'm looking for? I don't know. I don't know this is my 2.5 GPA coming out right now.
Yeah, no,
So
whatever. No, it's perfect. It's beautiful because you're right. I mean, the time blocking is not perfect. And even whenever I time block, it's not going to be perfect. And I recognize that. And I don't hold myself to that standard, because then it kind of invites some negative emotions of, oh, I didn't achieve what I meant to achieve. But that's not
yeah,
the point of it, of course, right?
right.
It's having those priorities and knowing you're going to get to them. And then if something comes up that's just completely out of your control, then you know what you had to move in your time blocked schedule in order to hit that fire, if you will, put that
Right.
fire out.
Yeah.
So you just pick it up and you put it somewhere else. You don't have to sacrifice it. You got to be flexible sometimes, and that's the way I've done it.
Yeah. Life happens, right? I mean, it just nothing.
That's right.
And when it happens more frequently, you realize how less you are in control, which is okay. Right? It's okay. Don't have to worry about being perfect. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
so
That's right.
as a busy professional, right? So the audience of the podcast is 80% males, 25 to 40, 50 years old, who are working a W-2 job, right? They're focused on their career, they're focused on their family, they've got a kid or they've got a kid on the way. And I feel like my internet is messing up. Is my internet messing up?
And how to stay physically
Yeah. So
fit.
we're going to edit this, but if you're just joining, we were having some technical issues. Hopefully they've gone away now. And anyway, uh, Zoom has been fun today. So the question is, the ideal, not the ideal listener, most of the audience for the W2 Capitalist podcast and YouTube channel is 80% of it's male, right? 25 to 40 years old, focused on growing that career, very career heavy oriented, also family focused. Either they're married, they've got a kid on the way, or they've got a couple kids of their own. So how, with all that stuff going on, and now they're thinking about, okay, I want to add passive income streams through real estate investing. I've got to be able to study this. With all that going on, what are some tips and tricks that they can, and I'm going to put myself in the same category as what are some of the tips that I can do to stay physically healthy, but also mentally healthy. Because I think the mental game, and I want to ask you, maybe before we get into that, what's more important, right? Physical health or mental health?
All right. Well, to answer that question, I would have to say they're equally important because you really can't survive
Uh,
with one and not the other, right? So I know it's probably not, the pointed answer you're really hoping for, but the end result of deteriorating mental health is suicide, right? And that ends your
mm,
physical life. And then, of course, the end result of deteriorating physical health is as well. So both are very precious. Both you have to have paid attention to both of them in order to live an amazing life of happiness and enjoy the wealth and wellness that you're creating. So you have to pay attention to both. You cannot have one without the other. As you improve your physical health, there's actually physiologically it improves your mental health. As you improve your mental health, then it actually improves your intellectual capacity and your ability to be successful and your ability to even enjoy meaningful connections, the relationships that you're wanting to enjoy or be successful in your W-2 job. So it's very symbiotic in nature. Typically, I would say your highest yield would be if you are able to get your physical exercise in, then that typically will lend itself to improving your mental health and will also improve your focus. It'll improve your attention, and it'll help you to feel better about yourself and confident enough to really engage in meaningful relationships without kind of feeling that it gets rid of that lagginess, if you will, if I can speak tech talk like my kids do
yeah.
sometimes. It kind of gets rid of that lagginess feeling and helps you really be more present, and
Mm.
so really, if you are able to get some form of exercise in, and it could be just a little, I mean, listen, I definitely at my at my breaking point when I had a life change and a life epiphany, in my W-2 job as a physician, I took on a bunch of leadership roles and got to the point where I literally was sleeping 2 hours a day, not always at night either. I
Wow.
had to go find a call room in the hospital and get it pitch black and just nap for a couple hours. Oh, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. But during that time, I mean, you say you don't have time, like that's really literally
Yeah.
no time, right? And so I might be in a call room and I'll commit to doing, push-ups and jumping jacks and sit-ups, and they have resistant bands now. So during this COVID lockdown, I've been using resistance bands at home a lot more until I could
Yeah.
get back into the gym. But there's CrossFit gyms as well. So for people that travel, there's always the option to go. And a lot of the gyms too have it now to where if you're a member at one gym, and then you can
Mm,
go to another gym in another location and still check in for free just because you've got that membership. So
yeah.
getting really creative. A lot of times, if you're working for corporations, there's been a big push, which has been amazing, to incorporate wellness. And so sometimes groups will get together for yoga or Tai Chi or to run in the morning or to do some cycling. Anything you can find, if you can squeeze in even 30 minutes of some vigorous activity per day, which is, the layman's terms, get it vigorous. Vigorous is just get your heart rate up and make it
Right.
hard to have a conversation, but just that alone is super high yield, very high yield for health.
So I'm gonna answer my question for you. You just
Okay.
put more precedence or priority on physical health.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say, well, it's going to be higher yield. Let me
Yeah,
let me
no,
put it that way, right?
I love that, and I love you're talking in investor terms. I think that's going to speak volumes to the community here. And also what I love you here say, hey, 30 minutes a day, right, or 30 minutes every other day. Doesn't really have to be. You don't have to think that you have to spend 2 hours in the gym, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you the last time I spent 2 hours in the gym. It was probably 20 years ago, if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, 30 minutes a day.
and
That's amazing.
I show that now, but um, it, and I want to encourage everybody too. If 30 minutes seems like a stretch for you, start out with 10 minutes, right? There's a guy by the name of Will Smith who does generational wealth building. He started this hashtag 50 with Will, which is basically a 30-day challenge. Hey, do 50 push-ups a day. That's it. Don't even think about anything else. Just do 50 push-ups. And you don't have to do them all at once either, right? And so if you're thinking about, man, I can't do 50 push-ups, I couldn't either when I started, right? And so I just want to encourage people when you think about doing physical activity and because it is going to help your mental activity. I feel so much better when I do the physical exercise mentally. It's kind of, I don't know, it's interesting, right? I mean, I can do all these brain activities and brain exercises, which I want to pick your brain on a couple of those and kind of see what your thoughts are on that. But usually it comes back to the physical activity that really charges me up, right? So
And
I
that's
love that.
physiologic, Jay. So you're
Yeah.
experiencing, I mean, that it's amazing when you get on a treadmill, or even if you do some stuff in place, just kind of getting that focus of what you're doing in your
Yeah.
exercise. There's a lot of physiology that happens in the brain that makes it such
Mm,
that you can be creative. You can also be more attentive and innovative on a specific project, if
yeah.
you've got something on your plate. So.
And let's not get crazy and put the picture of me on a treadmill for anybody, because that doesn't happen. That's mainly what I do in the morning times is I'll do a 10-minute hit workout. So high intensity training where it's just one thing right after another. Don't take a break for 10 minutes and I'm done. Cause
Nice.
I do it mainly to wake myself up, right. And get those mental juices flowing. The rest of my workout are the 3 kids that we have running around, right?
That's a lot of workout.
I kind of justify that as, I mean, we wrestled in the floor for like 2 hours last night, because I don't know, our kids go in these spurts. I know you have them too, but if you remember back when, they're under 5, everybody has their own sleep cycle and it's not all night long. So yesterday they were a little unruly and I just said, you know what, I'm going to wrestle with them for 2 hours. I'm going to tire them all out. And it worked for the most part. It worked for the most part. Now I slept
Wow.
really hard too, so it was good. It was good. It was good.
I was
Uh,
gonna say, I'm impressed. We try to tire our kids out and it just doesn't happen. They'll
well,
be up
yours are a
all
little bit
throughout the
older,
night.
so
They are a
it's
little older. Yeah. 9, 9, and 11. Yeah.
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 um, so I got to ask you this too. This is more of a personal thing. I probably 2 months ago I started just taking cold water showers. It was a number one. It started out with a dare, and I think Tony Robbins has this thing too about cold water plunges. And then I was introduced to the Wim Hof method of breathing and ice plunges, and I've started to do a little bit of that, and it sounds weird, but it's exhilarating. But are you familiar with those two concepts, like cold water plunges and the Wim Hof breathing method? Are you familiar
I'm
with that?
not familiar. I'm not familiar with Wim Hof. The cold plunges, I know that Robin's been a fan of those, and I haven't studied the physiology behind it, so I wouldn't be able to tell you from a medical standpoint what's happening there. But I'm with
Yeah.
you though, in that I have experienced that too. I have done that.
Okay.
Sometime back, even when I'm studying for board exams back in the day for medicine, I would jump in the shower, make it super cold just to wake myself up and just get the alertness back up so I could sit down and focus again.
And if you want to get a 4.0 on your GPA, that's
That's right.
cold showers, right? Cold showers.
That's right.
By the way, so you played soccer in college. Where did you go? Where did you go to college?
Yeah, I went to the University of Texas in Dallas and played
Okay.
soccer there. Yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right. Very, very cool. I was a walk on myself. I played a little football and well, I didn't play. I was a tackling dummy. Let's be honest. I was a tackling dummy and probably the best shape ever in my life and some of the best things I ever did. But man, it was extremely hard. It was,
Oh man.
I would like to blame my GPA on that, but it really had nothing to do with it.
It's hard work, man. They run you hard, right? They run you
They
hard.
do. And some of the life's best lessons that I learned through that for sure. For sure.
Oh,
So,
100%.
so let's talk
100%.
about mental. We talked a little bit about physical, right? You know, if you're starting out to working out, do 30 minutes a day. Just get that heart rate up. That's the biggest thing. What is what are some of the mental health exercises that somebody can do, right? To exercise your brain. Because, I probably about a year ago, I was introduced to meditation. And when I thought it was just kind of this weird thing that weird people do, now I have a totally different outlook on it because when I meditate, I actually feel, and I know this is my brain playing tricks on me, but I actually feel like, how if you were to do 50 push-ups and your muscles are just, you could feel your heartbeat in them. I kind of feel like when I meditate, I feel my heartbeat in my brain. Like I can feel it expanding and contracting. Is that like something that actually happens or is my brain just playing tricks on me?
No, it's good. It speaks to the amount of focus you're
Okay.
that you're obtaining during your meditation, which is fantastic. So yeah, in the way of mental health exercises, there's a few things that, again, I say are high yield. I like to say high yield because I really don't like to exclude any one thing from another because
Right.
it's all
I
important. You gotta
love
have it
the
all. You gotta
I
have it
love the
all.
phrase. I love the phrase, and it speaks to investors too, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. So for mental health, a couple of things that you can really focus on. So one is practicing that attention and that focus, just like you alluded to. And meditation is a beautiful way to do it. Meditation has a lot of other health benefits as well, including lowering your heart rate. It can lower your blood pressure. Well, it does lower your blood pressure if you're doing it effectively. But in the long term, for people that have high blood pressure, meditation can actually help with that. But in addition to that, even if you're not into meditation, there's other things you can do. So a huge thing that you can always carry with you through life is, in the grand scheme of things, happiness is an accumulation of the positive experiences you have in life. So how many positive experiences can you have? And if you want to look at, Nelson Mandela and some other historical figures in the past that a lot of people really admire, for their ability to not experience negative emotions. So, Mandela was in prison, right,
mm,
for years and years and years, and then became president of Africa afterwards. And then immediately forgave, and even had gratitude towards the prison guards, saying, he looked after me for all the years. And so, really, one of the most beautiful things in life to help with mental health is, when you are experiencing something that could be viewed as negative, there's always the pessimistic view, but there's
mm.
always the optimistic view. You can always take something positive from that. Now, it's not to say you have to evade the negative emotions you're feeling. Acknowledge those,
I try
realize they're
to.
happening. Yeah, right. No, not say we don't, but
Yeah.
yeah, recognizing we're experiencing negative emotions. Yeah, I practice this daily. I'm experiencing a negative emotion. What is that coming from, and what do I need to change in myself so that I'm not experiencing that negative emotion? And so, learning how to really enjoy the positive things in life and understand how things are working towards a greater good for you, or working towards a greater goal for you. Something that I do every single day, and really, it just has a huge increase in my quality of life. And then the third thing I would say, in addition to practicing focus and then practicing seeing the positive aspects of how things, let me rephrase that, to see how things are meaningful to you in life in a positive way. And then the third thing is being present in relationships, because again,
Mm,
it's really, I feel like in general, we kind of neglect how important that is. As human beings, this is a required element for happiness. We have to have meaningful social connections, and we have to be engaging in those. Otherwise, they may as well not exist. So, putting the phone down, this is, again, speaks to the time blocking. If you've blocked out 30 minutes with your person, whoever that is that you can engage with and enjoy the communication with, make sure that that that's your time blocked time. So the phone goes away, the computer goes away. When the kids come in and break it up, and, oh, I have it's emergency, it's
mm,
emergency, someone dying. Well, no. Okay, are you dying?
uh,
Someone hurt? No. Okay, I'll be with you in 30 minutes.
yeah.
Really focusing to try to protect that time so that you can be present in the moment. And
Yeah.
sports, same way, right? Talk to elite athletes. They are present in the moment, and that's what makes them amazing at what they do. Well, if you want to be amazing with your mental health and in relationships,
Mm.
you got to be present in that moment.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, throughout my career, I've learned that I am the guy who can't switch gears that quickly, right? But and what I mean by that is go from work to home, right? Because when I go home, I'm sitting here thinking about work and all this other stuff. And time blocking does allow me to do that, right? I was like, okay, it's like this mental game. All right, you're done thinking about that. You need to go thinking about something else. But you just challenged me because I've been thinking about all the distractions when I want to spend time with my wife or with my kids have been, device related, right? Or something else. But really, it could be that if I want to spend time with my wife, the kids could be a distraction. Of course, I'm giving myself a little bit of a give there, or a mulligan or whatnot, because we do have, 5, 3, and 1. There's some need, some general needs that
There are.
they're not self-sufficient yet. But I think you make an excellent point that I have to think about and figure out, right? Is how do my wife and I make sure we get that quality time? Because right now we're both working, we're trying to raise the kids, and by the time, you know the kids are in bed, we're both so exhausted, either she just goes to bed or I'm up working, and I don't know, you you touched a nerve that I need to, or an itch I need to scratch there. So that's really good stuff. Really good
Yeah,
stuff.
and listen, we've been there too. The kids were younger, and exactly, similar to your ages. Obviously, they're 9, 9, 11 now, but they were close to your kids' ages at one point. And you're right, like it's so much harder. And what we did was we literally would bring in, we'd hire a sitter, a nanny, a
Mm.
kid next door type of deal, come in and, hey, keep them alive for an hour. We're gonna go out, and
All
we'll
we're
be
doing
back.
is asking you to keep them alive for an hour. We're not
That's
setting the
right.
bar high. That's awesome.
That's right. That's right. So and getting away just to have that time, because again, it's kind of like what they say on the airlines, right? Is when the oxygen mask comes down, you got to put yours on first, and then you can help all the others, right? Because if yours doesn't go on, then your time to help is very
Yeah.
limited. And so it's kind of part of your oxygen mask, and that's what we did. So we would hire, a sitter, and have a date night, and we time blocked that,
Mm.
and so even if you can't get a full date night in, you could time block even an hour and say, hey, hon, on the
Yeah.
phone, I'm going to be home in about, an hour or so. Do you want to see if so-and-so can just watch the kids, and we'll go get coffee, or we'll go for a walk around the neighborhood,
Yeah.
just for an hour, and talk to each other, and the kids will be taken care of. And then when we get back, it'll be full on again.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's a good mental break too, right?
Yes, yes, 100%.
We don't know anything about
Absolutely.
those yet. We're
Um,
so I got to ask you too. You talked about this earlier. You touched on it earlier, and we're in that. We're talking about relationships and whatnot. And I did a YouTube live, which I didn't tell you this, but I will push this on YouTube, or publish this on YouTube. And one of the things that I did on my YouTube live, I talked about your circle of friends, right, and how they are such an integral part of being successful and being happy, right? And one of my friends who's in that tight knit circle posted this on social media the other day. Who was like, "When is the last time you had a bad day?" And I literally could not think of the last time I had a bad day.
That's
And I was
awesome.
and I was like, why is that? you know,
That's
and
amazing.
so I want to ask you, do you know when's the last time you had a bad day?
Oh, you know,
If you have one, I think it shows you're human. I think
of
there's
course.
something wrong with me, right?
No, 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 no. I think it really speaks to your mindset, right?
Mm,
And kind of what we were talking about before, how do you turn what initially seems like a negative experience? Where do you find the positive in that? And then how long do you harp on the negative versus how long you harp on what you can find the positive being, and what's the lesson to be learned there? And, I think that for a long time now, it's been nice to have a lot more positivity in my life than negativity. So yeah, definitely I'm human. Negative influence comes in. There's people out there that they just have a way to inject a little
mm.
negativity, just like, gosh darn it.
I keep those
But
people way outside my circle. I do
that's
not
right.
I do not
That's
interact with
right.
them at all. So
Yeah, 100%. And I love that. And so my husband and I are the same way. We've created a circle around us of just positive influencers, people that are, our peers. We consider to be kind of in the same race that we're in to achieve life happiness. And and then we've also got people above us, that have done
mm,
things that we haven't done yet, but that we're aspiring to do. And sometimes it's just as simple as through connection virtually, like,
yeah.
with you and your podcast. It doesn't have to necessarily be in person, but over time we have actually weeded out the negativity, those people that just seem to always have that little bit of a
Yeah.
negative slant on life, and
Yeah.
you can't help but to share that.
I
And
used to
we've done
think,
we've definitely worked on that.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but
No,
I
no,
used
go
to
ahead.
think it was my job to change their mindset. And that drug me down so quick and so fast that I was like, I finally realized, and I don't know, probably the last time I was in the gym for 2 or 3 hours. I don't know when it was. No, it was probably within the last 5 years. I was like, you know what? Here's the thing. This is about me and the rest of those people in this house, right? It's not about anybody else. Either you're with me or you're against me. And if you're coming in with that negative attitude, telling me I can't do this, I shouldn't do that, I shouldn't be thinking about that, then I don't want to be around you, right? There are what, 7 billion people on the planet. If I can't find 5 people who support me in the way I want to be supported, something's wrong. Something's
That's
wrong with me,
right.
right? So,
No, that's great,
uh,
Jay. That's very wise of you, and absolutely. I've been, at one point was a manager of a lot of people, if you will,
mhm,
and of course that comes with a lot of positive influencers, and some of the negative influencers,
probably
and
more negative. Being a manager myself, I'm just gonna say it was probably
yeah.
more negative, but
Yeah, yeah. And so, but there's stuff to be learned there, right? Because
yep,
as the negative influence comes in, that's where you get to challenge. For me, I got to challenge myself as a leader. We talked about some leadership books,
yeah,
early on, and
yeah,
I get to challenge myself as far as, okay, now how do I, neutralize this situation? How do I empathize and hear this person and respect their perspective? And then how do I get them mushing in the same direction? How do I identify the common goal between us so that
yeah,
there's nothing fake about it? It truly is like, what are your goals? What are my goals? And then where do we find commonality and mush the same direction? And then that still will get most of the negativity
yeah.
and mushing in a positive direction. But then there's still just those last few that, for whatever reason, just not going to do it. And those are the people, right? Those are the people that, you help them as much as you can, but it should never be to your detriment. If you're a
Yeah,
manager, it shouldn't.
yeah. It's probably means they don't belong there if you're a manager in a W-2 world and you've
Yeah,
done everything you can to get them
that's
on board.
right.
What are you saying? Mush?
Yeah,
Like a
like
dog
a
sled?
sled dog. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, all right.
Come
No,
up
just
with some
making
funny
sure.
analogies. I'm all
No,
over the place.
I like
Yield,
it.
mush,
I
whatever.
love it. I love it. I love it. Have you ever been on a dog sled before?
I haven't, but I'd love to.
Yeah, I don't know. Cold weather and me don't get along, so I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So real quick, and I know we're running up here on time, but I want to make sure. So we talked about you being a doctor. Uh, I've got one question. It's going to be about COVID. So I'll give you a preface there. Before we get into the question, what is your specialty? Where are you at right now with your doctorate?
I did my emergency medicine residency, graduated out of that back in 2012, and then became board certified in emergency medicine, and have been in the ER up until January of this year,
Mm,
and then retired from all of emergency medicine. Actually, once I had become financially free, and now my focus is turned more towards lifestyle medicine, which does incorporate that health, basically putting together wealth and wellness. And so it's a perfect passion that I get to pursue now, and working on board certification for that now.
that's awesome. So I would say you dodged a bullet getting out of the ER before this whole COVID thing really, really hit. I know that probably goes against some oath you took as a doctor to want to be able to help everybody, right? So, pardon the phrase, but I'm looking at it as I wouldn't want to be there. But you're probably thinking, man, I retired at the wrong time because I want to be able to help as many people as I can. But what is going on with COVID, right? Is it as bad? I mean, in your medical opinion, it is a virus, right? People have died from it. I can't see anything where it's worse than the flu. Again, 2.5 GPA right there. It's what I'm. So your opinion is going to weigh a lot heavier than mine. But I think there's things that are blown out of proportion. Our our kid's pediatrician said it the best. I think she goes, in the coming months we're going to know more about this virus, and we're going to realize it's not as scary as everybody thinks it is, and we're going to figure out ways to treat it, right? But I was like, yeah, but there's all you see the news is inundated with, and I do a really good job of not talk about staying away from negative stuff. I do not watch the news, right? I haven't for
Nice.
over a decade. But my wife keeps me up to date, right? Or Facebook feed keeps me up to date. And I'm
Good.
just one of those things where I'm like, this thing just seems way out of proportion, right? So in your opinion, uh, is COVID that dangerous? Or what's the big thing there? Where are we headed for the next couple of months? Let me rephrase the question. Where are we headed in the next couple of months when it comes to COVID-19?
Well, Jay, it's a loaded question
It
there.
is.
And
It
so,
is.
so I'm very evidence based. So I'll tell you that right out of the gate. And so I love to see the numbers. I think the numbers tell what needs to be told. There's some people will give their opinion. Obviously, some people will just cite data. I'm probably somewhere in between.
Okay.
And so, is it as dangerous as everyone says? Well, I'll have to defer to the data on that. And so here's the problem with new infectious disease, though. when you have a new infectious disease, you don't have enough data to know exactly
Mm,
how dangerous it is, right? I mean, whenever the first outbreak happened in China, in Wuhan, China, the Chinese CDC was putting out whatever data they could get a hold of, they were putting it out. The World Health Organization, started putting out data as quick as they could as well. And the suggested mortality rate was between 3 and 4% compared to seasonal influenza having a mortality rate of like 0.1%,
yeah.
right? That's huge. And so those numbers are very scary. What do you do with that? Well, so can you just write it off and say, nah, I'm sure the numbers are wrong. It's just seasonal influenza, right? So no, you can't, right? I mean, you got to pay attention to the numbers, but you also have to take into consideration that this isn't the whole picture, because, you still don't have an entire population, an entire country or entire world that's been infected yet.
Mm,
And there's discrepancies, there's disparities in healthcare. In America, here in the United States, we've got robust facilities that have contingency plans and backup plans, and most people don't go without whenever they go to a hospital here, but that's not the same story in other
mm,
countries, right? And so that can contribute to a discrepancy in mortality rates as well. um, so as more people get the virus, that mortality rate is going to change.
right.
It's going to fluctuate based on, as younger people get it and don't die, that mortality rate comes
Mm,
down. As older people get it and die, that mortality rate goes up. So it's really based on the math and the numbers there. The current numbers that we're seeing now, obviously, they're going up. Texas is starting to reverse their opening now, right? And it's, in my opinion, and based on the numbers and the data that I've seen, it's a combination of things. It's multifactorial. As you reopen, of course, there's more exposures, right? There
sure.
are going to be more exposures to virus. But with that said, there's also more availability of testing.
Mm,
So we have a lot more tests going out now and a lot more people getting tested, including people that don't necessarily have symptoms. They may have, I coughed. Oh no, I coughed. Maybe I should just go get tested and make sure I don't have COVID, And then if they
yeah.
do become positive, do they really have it, or did they have it and now they have antibodies to it, right? So
Right.
there's just so much there that I hate to dodge the question, but at the same time, it's in my opinion too difficult to answer, and there's too many unknowns right now. I think that the prudent thing, though, and what the data is very clear on, is that if you're doing the etiquette thing and you're wearing the mask, I mean, that's protecting others around you. It'd be the same thing as if you're going to sneeze, not sneezing in someone's face, but instead, turn your head,
Yeah.
sneeze into your elbow. It's great etiquette, and it
Yeah.
also is beneficial for those elders that they have to go to the grocery store. They
Right.
have to, they
Yeah.
can't, they've got a situation where they can't get it delivered or have someone go get it, and they're scared to death. And so when they see people in a store without masks, they're stressed. You want to talk about health and wellness? If you have the giving mindset to help others with their own stress levels, then, please, by all means, do something real simple and just wear a mask in public, and help decrease the stress of others.
So two things. I think that's the most logical explanation I've heard from anybody on where we're at facing this COVID-19. The second thing is, and you're not going to like this, I don't own a mask. I won't wear one. And I haven't looked at it as an etiquette thing. And I'm high risk. So, right. So I have asthma, have my entire life. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's that stubbornness that my wife talks about. I'm starting to understand what she means by that. I think she even bought me one or found one or something like that in my office. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I went to the store. I went to Lowe's the other day. She goes, "You wearing your mask?" I was like, "I don't know where it is," and I didn't.
Oh
I didn't know where it is. So anyway,
no.
I think that was the best explanation from an actual physician who's been trained and studied and been into the ER right up until January this year. So that's incredible. I love the line you said, with a new pandemic, there's not enough data to support it, right, or to know where this is going to go. So how long does it? And I don't know infectious diseases. I don't know, but how much time has to go by before we really know kind of what this is about?
I'm not a specialist in infectious disease. So to
Right.
any of my colleagues out there that would be listening to this, I'm not going to claim to know the exact answer to that. But what I can tell you is that as more populations of people become infected, we're going to have more specific data on
Mm,
who's at risk and who's not. I mean, there's even research that's been done that shows an immunosuppressed cancer patient infected by COVID survived it very well,
mm,
while they had a family member of theirs who was in intensive care that was not immunosuppressed. And
wow.
the only reason I bring that up is because it just, again, it speaks to how much we just don't know. We
Don't
haven't
know.
had enough time to study this to really understand where the danger lies and what we can do to mitigate risk, if someone does become infected. But the more populations of people that do become infected, like cancer patients,
Mm.
unfortunately, we don't want that, but it will happen. Children, infants,
S-
elders, yeah,
Speaking of
I hear
children,
you.
if you can hear mine in the
Yeah,
background. So sorry, it's
no,
lunchtime.
it's
So,
totally fine. Absolutely. Hey, I've had the same
uh,
situation before. But all that, again, just to say that the more populations of people that do become infected, the more data we have to look at, and the more we can kind of hone in on what the exact physiology of this is. And is it a ramped up overkill immune system that is causing deaths, or is it the virus itself? And I think there's still a little bit of question right now. There's more people that seem to think maybe it's an overcomposition of the immune system that's really causing the most critical illness,
mm,
and there's research to suggest that as well. But again, it just has to do with how many people become infected, so that we can take, just like a good investigation, right? For those
right.
of you who like good investigation shows on TV, it's how much data can you get, how much evidence can you get, and then you got to assimilate that all together, and then start doing some more research and trials to test it until you start getting the answers. So time is our friend as far as getting more knowledge and being able to predict more.
Love it. I wish more people would take that logical approach to talking about it, including myself.
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily like the right way to approach it, but it's certainly my way of approaching it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. All right, Miranda, before we get out of here today, and by the way, I want to, you're talking about physical and mental healthness, but you did like this one time, and I was like, whoa, watch out for the guns.
Uh-oh.
So, uh,
You're too kind. No,
yeah,
thanks.
it's
Thanks. I appreciate that.
uh, just for what bring that up for a couple of reasons. Number one is you obviously practice what you preach, right? But guys,
I do.
just
I do.
get started, right? If you're listening to this, get started on doing 50 push-ups a day. Heck, if that's too much for you, just start with 10. Doesn't matter. Just do something. Make that physical mental connection. But before I go off on a tangent and chase that rabbit, Miranda, what is the best way for people to connect with you and Elite Wealth and Wellness?
Oh, great. Thanks, Jay. We've got a YouTube channel. It's an Elite Wealth and Wellness YouTube channel. And I actually even have a COVID video that I put out back in March whenever all this first started up. So a little dated now. Obviously, we've got a lot of new changes, but um, that's my YouTube channel. And then, of course, you can always email me at Miranda at elitewealthandwellness.com. So anyone who wants to reach out to me can certainly shoot me an email. Any way I can be of service, that's ultimately my goal. And even with Elite Wealth and Wellness, our goal is we're really trying to create wealth and wellness for everyone, no matter your success or hardship. And so, again, any way that we can be of service to that, or anyone, that wants to be a part of our mission, like you, Jay, then we certainly welcome and enjoy that.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to go ahead and schedule and connect with you again in like 6 months to a year, so we can figure out what really happened with COVID, if
There
it's
you
that
go.
quick enough.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, there's obviously, I want to talk to you for personal reasons, but I think the message is going to resonate with the rest of the listenership and the viewership about, they both go together, right? The mental health and the mental and the physical health, and it starts with physical, right? Which I slack at a lot. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. Hey, we all do. We all do.
yeah,
And we all
yeah,
wax and wane too. Like you said
yeah,
earlier, don't perfection is the enemy of good, right? And you can be good and great without being perfect. And that's what we all do. I am absolutely far from perfect. But when it becomes, your daily practice, that's what makes you great. And
yep,
that's what really counts.
absolutely. All right, Miranda, thank you very much. We will connect very soon.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jay.
All right, before we get out of here today, I have a few things for you. Number one, before I started recording with Miranda, I was complimenting her on her bookcase and the behind her and how puny mine looks next to her. But anyway, that led to a playful conversation about audiobooks versus hard copy and how I fall asleep when it comes to hard copy. But here's what I'm going to do. If you can guess Miranda's favorite book on her bookshelf, I'm going to give you a hat. If hats are not your thing, I'll give you one of our super comfy T-shirts from the W2 Capitalist shop. But you got to guess in the comments below. And I'll give you a tip. It's on leadership. All right. So the second thing I want to do is I want to make sure that you have about Deal Check, right? Deal Check is one of our affiliates for the show. And when I record this, it's in mirrored version, so it's actually over here. Easiest freaking calculator out there for investment properties. So I want to encourage you to sign up for Deal Check. It's absolutely free. We do have an affiliate link below. More importantly, if you don't click on the affiliate link below, when you go to checkout, use promo code W2CAP. Because that'll get you an additional 25% off. Deal Check analyzes multiple asset types: BRRRRs, rentals, flips, multifamilies. It is the calculator. It's the go-to calculator I use as part of my underwriting. And the subscription that I have costs me just $5 a month. But you have to use the W2 CAP. It's going to get you additional 25% off your subscription. You can subscribe monthly or you can subscribe annually. The choice is yours, right? So the other thing too, and if you want to see a demo that I did on Deal Check, I'm going to post the link right here. And the third thing before we get out of here, I'm going to put a couple of videos here. Number one, I'm going to put a playlist right up here on the Earn, Invest, Repeat Square. It is a playlist to W2 and Mindset. There's a lot of videos we have in our library. I think it's 12 or 13 now when I'm recording this on mindset, right? Because mindset is one of those things that it's just going to get you to the next level. But I want to point out a couple of videos and I'll figure out how to put them down here. But number one, being healthy, wealthy, and happy is a choice with Gabriel Hamel. That was one of the ones way back when I was talking to Dr. Miranda Phillips here. It reminded me of my conversation with Gabriel we had a long time ago. And the other one, and this is specifically for you guys, is the episode with Ryan Mickler, who's the founder of Order of Man, Protect, Provide, and Preside. But I'll put both those videos down here at the bottom, as well as the link to the playlist for Mindset over here. It's over here.